It's 1513. With Pope Julius dead and the French expelled from Italy, the Holy League loses its leader and its purpose. The new Pope, Leo X, is far less belligerent. Venice is at odds with not only the Swiss who occupy Milan, but also with Maximilian, who covets most of Venice's land. The Swiss are also at odds with Maximilian and Ferdinand, who insist that Milan should be governed by a Habsburg instead of Massimiliano Sforza, the puppet governor installed by the Swiss. Feeling increasingly isolated, Venice makes an alliance with France. Louis promises Venice all the territory it had lost since 1509 if Venice backs him in obtaining Milan. A treaty is signed, and as a goodwill gesture, Bartolomeo Alviano, who was captured at Agnadello, is released. Louis also signs a truce with Spain, providing that no more hostilities will take place on France's border with Navarre. Navarre having already been captured by a Spanish-English army. With this done, Louis decides to mobilize his army for an invasion of Milan. He gathers 20,000 men, including 2,000 cavalry, 6,000 Landsknechts, and descends on Italy in May. Genoa immediately capitulates to the French, and the Milanese offer very little resistance. The Spanish decide to pull back their army to Naples and let the Swiss deal with the French. Alviano, under order from the Venetian Senate, is only allowed to join France if the Swiss are joined by Spain. After capturing Milan, the French move to besiege Novara, where a sizable Swiss garrison is holding out. After an unsuccessful attack, the French decide to pull back to the village of Trecate, east of Novara. They settle in for the night, planning to develop a proper siege the next day. Unbeknown to them, a Swiss relief army of 13,000 reaches Novara that night. After 3 hours of sleep, the Swiss form up for the attack. Their army is entirely made up of pikemen, with almost no cavalry or artillery. The French are completely unprepared. Their cavalry is positioned to the left of the village, while most of their infantry and their artillery is on the other side. Between Trecate and the French infantry there is marshy ground unsuitable for deployment. The Swiss right is the first to attack, however this is merely a ruse meant to occupy the attention of the French cavalry. The main body moves to attack the French guns. Volleys are fired, however the Swiss have masked their advance behind the tall crops just outside Trecate. When they emerge, they fall upon the Landsknechts guarding the guns, and bloody close-quarters combat ensues. On the other side, the French cavalry is completely occupied by the diversionary attack launched by the Swiss vanguard. When the rear guard joins the main Swiss attack, the Landsknechts begin to fall back. The Swiss capture the French guns and quickly turn them on the Landsknechts. On the other side, the cavalry manages to extract itself, however all is lost by the time they could intervene. Many Landsknechts are cut down without mercy, and only the Swiss army's lack of cavalry saves them from complete destruction. Even so, the French lose 7,000 to only 1,500 Swiss dead. Once again, the French are forced to leave Italy in ignominy. The Swiss pursue them all the way to Dijon, and to compound their humiliation, Louis is forced to bribe them to leave. However, the defeat at Novara is only the first act in a string of French defeats. While the better part of the French army was away in Italy, the English, still at war with France, began to land troops at Calais. Henry VIII himself disembarks on the continent to meet with Maximilian. The king and the emperor decide to join their forces against the French and push all the way to Paris. At the end of June they begin their advance, however they get bogged down at the siege of Terron. Louis is determined to break the siege, so he sends a strong detachment of cavalry to relieve the town. They are met at Guinegate by a superior English and Imperial force, and they are routed in what became known as the Battle of the Spurs. 3,000 French are killed or captured. Next, the Allies move on Tournai and capture the city by October. While Henry is on campaign in France, grave news arrives from Scotland. King James IV of Scotland, invoking the old alliance with France, declares war on England. James hesitates for a month, and when he finally attacks, the English are well prepared to receive him. Using superior Renaissance tactics, the English army annihilates the Scots, killing King James himself. With the campaign season over and both the French and the Scots vanquished, Henry and Maximilian decide to hold the attack. Even though France was defeated twice, little territory was lost. Meanwhile, back in Italy, France's unexpected defeat had thrown Venice in a precarious position. Ferdinand decides to exploit the Republic's weak position. He orders his Spanish troops in Naples to head back to Lombardy. He aims to take back all the territory from Venice that had been lost after the Battle of Ravenna. Alviano wisely decides to retreat to Padua and puts his trust in the modern fortifications of the city. The Spanish besiege him, but fail to take the city or inflict any serious damage. To draw out Alviano, they decide to ravage the countryside, inflicting never-before-seen damage on the Republic's towns and villages. The ploy works. Alviano receives fresh reinforcements and decides to face the Spanish in open battle. The two armies meet at La Motta, near Vicenza, on October 7, 1513. Alviano has superior cavalry. However, as far as the infantry is concerned, he mainly relies on inexperienced city militia. The Spanish army has fewer cavalry. However, the infantry is made up of experienced Spanish and Landsknecht soldiers. Alviano launches his cavalry on both flanks and achieves initial success against the Spanish. However, when the two infantries meet, the disciplined musketry and solid pike squares of the Spanish and Landsknechts push back the Venetian infantry. Almost instantly, a rout ensues and the larger part of the panicked Venetian infantry is cut down without mercy. Alviano again retreats with the remnants of his army to the safety of the impregnable defenses of Padua. Unable to dislodge him, the Spanish fail to exploit their victory. 1415 is spent with piecemeal skirmishing between the armies, bringing even more ruin to Venice's territories. However, the Republic is ultimately saved from total destruction. Meanwhile in France, a peace treaty is signed with the English. Louis XII starts to ponder a new invasion of Italy. However, he dies on January 1, 1515, before he could realize this plan. His successor, the young and ambitious Francis I, is even more resolute to take back Milan and achieve French hegemony over Italy. To this end, he gathers one of the largest armies ever fielded by a French monarch. 20,000 Landsknechts, 10,000 French infantry, now organized in the Swiss-German fashion, and over 3,000 men-at-arms and 72 artillery pieces. The Swiss, still in control of Milan, are well aware of this danger. They decide to preempt the French invasion by blocking all the major mountain passes leading into Italy. All the major passes, that is, except one in the south. With exceptional haste and professionalism, the French cross the Alps at its unguarded pass and fall upon the unsuspecting Papal and Milanese cavalry, annihilating it. Next, the French press on towards Milan, forcing the Swiss to also rush back to the city. Francis positions his army between the city and the Spanish army waiting at Piacenza. A Venetian army is also waiting 1 day's march from the French position. However, Alviano is again under orders to only risk his army if the French gain the upper hand. Francis' intention is to first clash with the Spanish and take care of the Swiss by other means. To this end, he offers an exorbitant bribe to the Swiss. Some take the bribe and decide to leave, however the majority, around 22,000, decide to stay and fight. On the 13th of September 1515, the Swiss issue out of Milan and by late afternoon form up on the plain before Marignano. Unlike at Novara, the French are prepared for them. Francis had ordered entrenchments to be dug and organized the French army in 3 mutually supporting battles, each with its own infantry, cavalry and artillery. Like at Novara, the Swiss army is almost entirely infantry, organized into 3 columns that advance simultaneously and with great haste. A forlorn hope is detached from the main body that rushes the French guns. As they crash into the Landsknechts guarding the artillery, Francis launches a ferocious counterattack with his cavalry. The Swiss vanguard is beaten back. However, when the rest of the Swiss army arrives, the French vanguard is forced to retreat. To To counteract them, Francis orders his artillery and arquebusiers further in the back to fire on the Swiss flank. This is followed up by furious charges by his men-at-arms. The Swiss take more flanking fire and cavalry charges, and by the evening are forced to disengage. During the night, both armies remain at their stations, and sporadic skirmishing continues. Word is sent to Alviano, asking for the Venetians to intervene. Francis also reorganizes his forces in a more linear formation. At daybreak, the Swiss renew their attack. They are met with furious cannonade and arquebus fire, killing and wounding many, but not slowing their advance. The main focus of their attack is on the flanks, while the center is meant to check the French center. While the Landsknechts and the French infantry hold the line, the French heavy cavalry again launches furious attacks on the flanks of the Swiss pike squares. Soon all forces are engaged on both sides. At this crucial point of the battle, Alviano appears with the Venetian cavalry. With great ferocity, he falls upon the Swiss. A simultaneous push by the French encircles and annihilates the Swiss left flank. With the battle clearly lost, the Swiss grudgingly retreat. Francis chooses not to pursue, as he knows he might still rely on Swiss mercenaries in future campaigns. In any case, the Swiss are in no position to oppose him, having lost 10,000 to 8,000 French killed. Hearing of the French success, the Spanish army chooses to retreat to Naples. Francis marches into Milan, and the following year signs a treaty of perpetual friendship with the Swiss. This treaty will stay in effect until 1798. He also meets the Pope and makes peace with him. A treaty with Spain is signed at Noyon, providing that Milan will remain a French possession, while Naples will belong to Spain. In 1516, Maximilian launches another attempt to recapture Venetian territory. However, this invasion grounds to a halt due to lack of money. Isolated and without a prospect of swift victory, Maximilian also decides to make peace with France and Venice at the Treaty of Brussels. Thus, this episode of the war that started in 1508 with the League of Cambrai is over. However, the war is far from being finished. With the death of Ferdinand in 1516 and Maximilian in 1519, Spain and the Holy Roman Empire will be united as one, bringing the war to its most decisive phase.